What about us? What about all the times you said you had the answers? What about us? What about all the broken happy ever afters? What about us?
Got it.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Sherry Braithwaite, and I am here to interview John Brailsford, Dr. Brailsford, that is. Brailsford.
We only have to say that once, and then from now on, you just call me John.
John, okay.
Oh.
Okay, that's good to know. John.
Yes.
He's also the host for the LDS Singles Flameless Fireside podcast. That was such a mouthful. And we love that podcast. And I'm wanting people to learn more about it. Because it is so cool. It's my idea that I have, the same as you guys, is that you want to hear people's stories. And I love that you're doing that. And so I'm sharing with everyone. And so the reason why I'm interviewing John today, I mean, two reasons, because I love the topic that he specializes in, for one thing. And the other is that he is doing this podcast. And so I am interviewing each of the hosts, and because I think it's also good for them to have a chance to talk about themselves. Is a good way to get your message out there also. So that being said, this is Dr. Brailsford. John, he wants to be called John. He has a PhD in family relations and human development from Florida State University. He's been a licensed marriage and family therapist for 23 years. He's now working as a therapist at Logan River Academy. And I want to talk about this too with you, that you are creating an emotionally supportive community called One Mind Tribe for people who are looking for more than self-help, but don't necessarily need therapy. That's very similar to what I'm doing. So is it an online community or is it in person?
It will become more online as we go. Be looking for more this summer.
That's so good. I just love that. That's so cool.
Somebody asked where they can find out more. Right now, probably the best place to go is Facebook and look for One Mind Tribe. Okay. And there's a private page and a public page. And there's some posts from a few months ago that are just the groundwork, kind of the principles that we stand by. Yeah. And so if you want to go and just learn about it, read some of those posts. That's a good way to start. And then we'll have a website this summer and we'll go from there. So
good. So I have a support group. I call it support. It's more like just a community of awesome people. But we have therapists and life coaches and all different influencers and singles. And they're all in there for the purpose of helping the singles who want to, personal development. And this is what I love about having different people with different experience and expertise, is that when you want to understand the psychology behind how things are happening or what's going on in your mind, or how you can really help the therapists, is really where that's at. Their education, their experience, that's why they spent so much time going to school. Because
and you know what, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say, the more knowledge, the more power. So I'm going to say therapists will either steer you in the right direction much more effectively, or they will steer you in the wrong direction much more effectively. And so be very careful about who you trust. Just because they're a therapist, trust me, does not mean that they'll lead you in the right path. They'll lead you there well, though. So wherever you want to go, a therapist will take you.
It's so true. You still have to follow it's Celeste says, amen, John. I think that's good. You really do have to follow your gut, and the connection is important.
A good therapist, if it's not working, encourages their clients to find who will help them. So
exactly. So good. So do some getting to know you questions too.
Absolutely. I know a thing or two about myself, so.
You do? Okay, good. That's good. That's a good start.
So those questions I like those. So
those are easy ones. Okay, very good. Okay, so first question. Oh, I saw that you told me that you are an aspiring author. So tell us about the book.
Oh my goodness, I'm going to tell the story.
Okay.
Yes. And this will probably. Listen, I like to tie everything into the subject for the day, but many years ago, when I was at Florida State, actually, So to kind of blow off some steam, there were a couple of other graduate students and we would go canoeing, probably like one weekend a month. You know, we would just go down to the Wakulla River that runs, you know, through the panhandle of Florida and out into the Gulf of Mexico. But just beautiful, beautiful river with a lot of wildlife, manatee, gators, all kinds of waterfowl, owls, you know, lizards and snakes and whatever you're looking for, you can find it on the Wakulla River. But yeah, one day we were there, and it's funny because when I tell people this story, they laugh. They think I'm telling a joke, because it literally was a Catholic, a Mormon, and a Jew in a canoe. And, you know, and so it sounds like a religious joke of some kind, but it actually happened. And it really is
Awesome.
This story that really impacted me. But we were out there, it was lightly raining, which it often does in the summertime. It just rains, you know, like you'll get these clouds coming off the Gulf. And so it's raining part of the day, almost every day in the summer. And it was just incredible. Like, in fact, it was almost like the drops of the water would make the leaves on the trees all dance. So it was just like constant movement, wildlife, you know, there was like gators with like 6 turtles on their back, sunning themselves on the back of a gator, you know. It was just like wildlife was, there were manatee there that day, which, you know, you only see them some seasons of the year. But anyway, I was just mesmerized by it. And we just sat there for a minute. We were just floating on the river, you know, just paddling enough to not let the river take us. Anyway, I really didn't know the Catholic guy. I didn't know the guy sitting behind me. I was in the middle of the canoe, and I just said to him, hey, you know, do you ever go to church? And I knew he didn't. Like, he, you know, he was not a church going kind of guy, but he said, oh yeah, I go to church every Sunday. In fact, I go to church multiple times per week. And I was looking at the Jewish kid. So the Jewish kid's 24, I'm about 28. The other guy's like in his 40s going back to graduate school. So, and I look at the Jewish guy, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, is he serious? Like, I'm not looking at the guy that I just asked the question. And he just starts laughing. He can't hold it in because he knows he's lying like a dog. But in a way he wasn't, because what he said is, I turned to him and I said, oh wait, before the Jewish guy laughed, he said to me, I said, where do you go to church? And he said, my friend, I am a member of the Church of the Open Canoe. And he looked really serious. And that's when I looked at my friend and I just said, is he serious? You know, like the Church of the Open Canoe. And then they all started laughing, and I realized he's joking. But I thought about it later, and really it was like we were in a church. It was like that canoe was like sitting in the pew of like this cathedral with just all these amazing things happening all around us it was like worship, you know? Yeah. So many years later, I'm sitting with a famous author at dinner time. You know, I met this author. I accompanied my sister to get cancer treatment in Mexico. And this famous author was there with her 2 daughters, her 2 grown daughters, and we met and just hit it off. We became really good friends. And every once in a while, she would come to Salt Lake City. She was involved in one of the direct sales companies there. And so one day I had taught that summer at Education Week and at BYU. And I had created these principles that I had found very helpful as a therapist to help my clients. And I gave out copies to her and all of her friends. And then later in the conversation, I tell that story of the Church of the Open Canoe. And she stops me and she just said, John, someday I want you to write a book about these 7 principles. And the name of the book is The Church of the Open Canoe.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like thinking, you are out of your ever-loving mind. I am not naming a book The Church of the Open Canoe. But later I thought about it. I actually texted her. I said, I apologize. And I said, you know what? If I were in a bookstore and there was like this drawing of a canoe tethered on a river, you know, and it's the Church of the Open Canoe, I would have to open that and find out what is that all about, you know? Yeah. So basically what it is, it's spirituality for people without a church or a religion per se, but it can also be for people with a religion. And my goal was these principles. If you're a Catholic, it'll make you a better Catholic. If you're a Latter-day Saint, it'll make you a better Latter-day Saint. If you're a Buddhist, you'll be a better Buddhist. I mean, it's just basically this is the bedrock of, you know, what it means to be a good human being, a good child of God, a good, spiritual being. So anyway, so that's the book. And I am determined. I really have gotten a light under me. And I've signed a contract with a little self-help like a publishing company. And let's see what happens.
Okay, we'll be your first readers.
We'll get some signed copies to the peeps. So
that sounds so awesome. I love it.
And if everybody lived by that, just to apply it to this topic for today, if everybody applied those principles, you know, the basic principles that we have found work, you know, we could figure out all of these issues we're going to talk about today on how to help our kids. I really believe that. So anyway.
Yes, I love it. I'm right there with you.
In fact, I can even make the argument, and I will, you know, that the canoe is Christ. You know, he's the one that buoys us up in the water and helps us.
I love it. And that's where you can find commonality. Sorry,
right.
I cut you off. But that's what I love about that. I don't even call it missionary work. I don't like to call it missionary because of the stigma that comes with that, but that's
true. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't personally. I just it's just sharing what you love.
Right.
Christ's love, right? Sharing Christ's gospel. I was wondering, there are more people on this call who know more about you than I do, I'm sure, because I've been recently introduced to the podcast. So these questions that I asked, I'm sorry, you'll have to just tell me. I interviewed Everett last week, so this is a good question. I asked him, you can answer this for yourself now. If you wrote a movie about your life, who would you cast as you?
Well, it's not Tom Hanks, because everybody casts him as everything. So
well, you could totally do it.
We gotta have something unique. Who's the Kevin something, the guy that played Mall Cop? He'd be a good one. I would hope he dropped just a little weight for the role, but
Kevin, what is his last name? Oh, Brad Pitt. Celeste said Brad Pitt. Christopher Waltz. Oh, Everett.
Yeah, maybe an older Brad Pitt.
Okay.
For him, he'd probably have to put on a couple, maybe like 5-10 pounds. Yeah. Maybe 20. I don't know.
So I think that we're having, Everett says, I totally forgot Christopher Waltz. He's the greatest actor in Hollywood. So he probably would have, Everett probably would have casted himself as.
Oh, I see.
Christoph.
I don't think Christopher Walken is my, he would be a good fit, but he would be fun.
So who do you guys think that we should cast as John? Who do you guys?
In my movie?
Yes, in his
movie. Someone I sometimes get is Matt Damon.
Okay.
That maybe kind of an older Matt Damon. He's getting older.
Yeah.
He could pull it off.
Very good.
He's got to have some chops.
Okay.
So,
do you have anyone on Matt Damon rocks? If anyone else sees who we can cast him in.
And I'm really glad you're asking me these substantive questions that really get to the heart of who I am as a person. And
I'm going to ask one more question, then we'll dive in. Okay,
Kevin James, that's it.
There we go. Okay. All right. So here we go. Let's see. Well, let me ask you this. What made you want to be a therapist first?
Ooh. So it's a miracle to me that I ever went to college. To be honest with you, I grew up in North Las Vegas. The dream of a kid in Northtown is probably, be a cop, be a mailman, or be a teacher. Something that's blue collar, and teacher would be the bright ones, but to be anything more than that, or, different than that, it's not like those aren't noble professions. And that's what my dad did. My dad was a teacher. My uncle was a postal worker. And a lot of my friends became cops. I was just so average. I was just I've thought of myself as kind of a dumb jock, with barely a 3.0, maybe not even a 3.0 in high school. So I couldn't get into BYU today, but I actually got into BYU on probation.
Yeah, that's a good way to get in.
So It's like I had it just by my fingernails. I'm into college. Yes.
Yes.
And that first semester, I got a 3.0. And it was enough to just say, you know, I can survive this.
Yeah.
And then I went on my mission. And
Mm.
that was a miracle because I went to Spain and I learned Spanish really fluently and really well. So when I came home, I tested out of 16 credits of Spanish with all A's. So that really helped my GPA a lot. And then I was off and running from there. And I just never stopped until I was done with the PhD. And
Wow.
the reason I chose psychology undergrad is because it was just sort of an easy major to complete, you know, and then what do you do with psychology when you're done with that? You know, it's kind of like, well, I don't know. And I decided I wanted to be a student advisor to student athletes at a university. So there was a college in Massachusetts that actually trained in that. It was very specialized, but it was a counseling or a master's degree in counseling psychology. So I went and did that. And while I'm there, one of my professors pulled me aside and he said, you know what? I'm watching you in these practica, you know, these classes where you practice doing therapy, and I think you'd be really good. You know, I think you'd be good at that, you know? And so being a student advisor is fine. It's just, but have you thought about being a therapist? But to be a therapist, I realized I would have to go get some more training. And I thought, well, while I'm at it, why don't I just get a PhD? So that's when, you know, that was a really dumb, I don't know if a PhD makes me smarter or dumber in some ways, because, you know, I went to 11 years of college total. Yeah. And that's, when you think about that, I don't know if that's incredibly bright or anything like that.
You know, more than us here put together.
Right. And you know, in a PhD program, I didn't go there to be called Dr. Brailsford. I went there to learn and to get really good at helping people.
Yeah.
What I discovered is a PhD will make you better at either helping people or hurting people. Because if you get really smart with the wrong kind of knowledge, you're dangerous. If you get smart with the right kind of knowledge, you're incredibly powerful in a good way. And so, and then, you know, there are some, they do a little damage, they do a little good, you know, and that was kind of the research one of my professors at BYU did, was the effectiveness of therapists. And he ended up finding that a third help people, a third don't really make a difference, and a third hurt people. You know, that's pretty sad when you think about it. And so I definitely wanted to be one of the third that actually helped people. And I like to think, at least most of my career, I think in the beginning, I don't think any therapist really knows what they're doing, but I just tried not to do any damage, at least.
Yeah.
But I think over the years, I've gradually learned how to help. So.
Okay, I love that. That's a perfect segue for our conversation for tonight.
Yes.
So I'm going to open it up to you guys. And I also have 10,000 questions because I love this topic, like I've said. So if you have a question, actually, let me just pose this to you guys. And I'll look at Facebook too, in case someone on Facebook wants to post a question, or let me see, 1 to 3 words, like a word or a phrase that describes a challenge or an undesirable behavior right now with your child or someone, you know. Maybe you're asking for a friend.
Yeah, you could write like ADHD, you could be uncooperative co-parent, you could be
right.
Whatever you want to put.
Thank you. That's good for clarification. And so put it in the chat, and then we'll just talk about some of the topics that you guys want to bring up, but it could be general, or it could be, I was hoping for specific, some challenges that you guys might be facing. Suicide.
As specific as you can be with a word or a phrase, but.
Yeah. Panic attacks, anxiety, suicide, uncooperative.
Okay, uncooperative co-parent. Yeah, we knew that was going to come up. So I'm glad we got that up there.
Yeah.
Oh, disrespect from your child, I presume.
Yeah, that's what I would guess. And I would add in there electronic addiction, all the behaviors that come with electronic addiction, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, and let me be clear too, like we put down specialty.
Impulsive, yeah.
Listen, I would hope that in a 23-year career, every therapist would have more than one specialty. I would say of all the things I've done in my career, addiction is probably my number one specialty.
Mm.
Um,
Oh.
Mindfulness-based approaches is another one. Attachment-based approaches to relationships is another one. And then parent-child stuff is another one. So there's all kinds of topics. And after a while, you don't just stick with one specialty, you just kind of add them like a tree.
Yeah.
And they all come together. And I think that's where like the 7 principles of the Church of the Open Canoe, or the 8 skills of the One Mind Tribe, that they distill upon you over time. And they help with everything. They help with addiction. They help with relationships. They help with, anxiety and depression. That it really is, it touches all that. That's probably more of what you'll hear tonight than the topic of parent-child relationships.
Well,
but
it
let's
helps.
just take those 2, or 3 for now.
Yeah.
Go ahead. So co-parenting. I would say the first thing I'm going to say about co-parenting is don't let co-parenting distract you from parenting. Focus on you parenting your child in the here and now. Okay. Don't get lost in the past. Even if you've made mistakes, don't worry about the future. Even if you think you're going to get sabotaged or taken advantage of or whatever, just what can I do right now to improve the situation, improve my connection to my child. Okay. And that's not always giving them what they want. So don't mistake that for when I say connect with my child, I don't mean just do everything for them or make their life easier in some ways. In a way, there's 2 things that scare a child. One is being dominated by a parent, and the other one is being enabled by a parent. Okay. When there's either too much structure or not enough structure, those are both scary for a child. Okay. They need to know that you're not going to dominate them, but they also need to know that you're not going to sort of abandon them to the wolves and just kind of let them find their own way when they're 12.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not okay. So what we're really looking for is balance and being in the now. So those are 2 of my 8 skills with the One Mind Tribe. One I call be here now. That's focus on what you can control, which is yourself in the here and now. And then my 7th skill is walk the path, walk the middle path, find the balance. When people are trying to knock you to extremes, bring it back to center. Don't let them distract you. And that can be a co-parent. It can be the child themselves. It can be yourself with your own stinking thinking and your self-talk that sabotage. And so you just got to let all those people, including your dark side, know that no, this is the kind of parent I want to be, and it's a balanced version of me, and I'm going to be consistent on that no matter what happens. So as far as co-parenting, I would say it depends on the co-parent. Some are cooperative, and if that's the case, great. One thing I want you to always remember is when a child looks in the mirror, especially if they're a biological child, but even an adopted child, when they look not so much at the physical characteristics, but when they look at who they are as far as their personality and sort of the little tricks of the trade they picked up on how to live life from both of their parents, when they look at themselves, they're seeing both, and they're seeing both the good and the bad. Okay. And so what I would say is be really careful about how you talk about yourself and the other parent. Don't make up things that are positive about you or the other parent, but don't talk negatively either. If it's negative, draw the attention back to you right now. So follow that same principle. And if a co-parent is extremely toxic, what I would say is if you can get a third party or an app that allows you to communicate that way and literally documents every exchange. Email could work for that. And you can even put like a little thing at the bottom, like a little statement at the bottom of every email that just says all of this will be recorded and is subject to being shared with attorneys and judges in legal proceedings. If you just want to be clear, you don't have to do that legally, but if you want to do that, just as a little reminder to them that if I'm going to, talk negatively, it's written in stone, so to speak. So Other than that, and then I would just keep it to just the kids. What is our stewardship? We are co-parents of these kids or this kid, and that's really all we have to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. And so don't let them reel you into discussions about relationships or about, finances or things like that. In fact, even if it's related to the decree as far as child support or anything like that, if it becomes in any way contentious, I would just refer them to your attorney, kind of thing. It's just basically, or to like an arbitrator, or somebody who can be a go-between. So
good advice.
Yeah. And so, yeah, if you keep in mind that your kids see both of you as part of who they are, I think that helps guide me on how I talk about the mother of my kids.
Yeah.
In a very respectful way, wishing her well. It's not enough just to not say bad things. I think you also, doesn't mean you have to buy her flowers on Mother's Day, or that you have to cook him dinner on Father's Day, or let's not be silly, although you can do that, I guess, if you're both single or something like that. But I'm just talking about, I always, for example, text my ex-wife and wish her a happy Mother's Day and thank her for our children. Okay.
Nice.
I do not, and she and I get along really well, actually.
Yeah.
So I think that's important, that they see you having at least a collaborative relationship. But if you can't do that, then keep it at least civil as much as possible. And sometimes with some people, the only way you can do that is make it electronic. So anyway,
what
was the next one?
Do you mind if I bring up a general question that might
go ahead.
All of them, but we still can go back to these, but I just was thinking this answer may help all of them. I don't know. You tell me. We can come back to these if it doesn't. Okay, so talking about disconnection. So because we aren't therapists, most parents are not therapists. We don't understand the behaviors. I see behavior and I know you're not supposed to help. You're not supposed to manage or treat or discipline the behavior. It's best for you to look to what caused the behavior, right? The behavior is just a symptom of what they're feeling, right? I mean, this is the part where I am challenged, is that so and some of the things that come to my mind are, like you said, stinky attitude, or the stinker, I would call sometimes stinker, or spoiled is how I might see it, spoiled. But underneath that is actually a cry for connection. It's not that makes sense. Like that's just these behaviors that come up that cause and that's what makes it so, I think those behaviors are what make it difficult for us to connect if we don't look at what it might be the cause behind it. So I don't know. Do you do any counseling with parents like that? Like how we're sitting on both sides of the couch and the kids there because
let's put it this way. When you are a therapist to mostly autism spectrum kids and their parents, there's pretty much not anything you don't talk about as far as disrespect. Because if you got kids who are wired for being overwhelmed by stimuli, you would not believe the tantrums that they can throw. And so it can be incredible. And then the oppositional defiant kids, my goodness, look out, everybody, Katie bar the door, right? And so
reactive attachment disorder.
Absolutely. And with adoption, you tend to get that more, although we do see it with kids who are not adopted. So where could we go with this? This is going to be fun. You're going to find this interesting.
Okay.
Who do you have control over? Really, when it gets down to it, only you.
Yeah.
And so ask yourself the question, how do I respond to this stuff? Okay. So let's start with something like lying. Okay. They lie to you. The first question I ask a parent who gets lied to all the time is, how well do you handle the truth? Okay? Hey, I tried marijuana, or hey, I got really hot and heavy with this other kid, or I tried this drug, or I broke some property, or, how do we handle that information? And if we use as a tactic anger and shame, I would say those are the two big bugaboos of parenting. If we are shaming them or becoming angry with them, I'm going to let you know, I really don't know that there's much of a place for either of those. And yet they're used way too often by too many parents. And so what's an alternative? That's the key.
Yeah.
Can I express to my child that, what, I really feel concerned about that, with you treating people that way, or with you doing things that damage other people's property, or with you, putting stuff like that into your body. I'm really worried that you're going to get impaired and taken advantage of. This is because I care about you. I want you to have a good life. What did I just do? I directed it back to what I want for them. I want you to have an amazing life. I want you to be safe. I want you to live till you're old. I want you to be there when I die. So I don't want to be there when you die. Yeah. Okay. Yes. And you can be really passionate about that. And that's not shaming. Yeah. That's actually uplifting, and like, even if they're being disrespectful, just say, hey, you know what? I know this is really hard for you to hear. I know you want me to say yes. I just don't feel comfortable doing that because I'm worried that you're going to get into trouble, but you treating me that way in response, I don't want you to grow up like that. I don't want you to think it's okay to yell at people or use profanity or call names and stuff like that and think that's fine. There's just no reason for it. You and I can talk. Hey, we're sitting here talking. So let's talk. Just tell me, how do you feel, without putting any mustard on the hot dog? Yeah. And I think those are really beautiful ways of letting them know that you don't have to yell at me to get the point across. So another question is, do I listen well? Yeah. Am I able to manage my own emotions as a parent? Okay. Here's another one. I interrupt contention. Yeah. My children to this day will get together. They're all grown. They're 22 to 33. They're all grown. They get together every other week to watch movies and do stuff together, or at least once a month. Awesome. And they're busy. They have their own lives. And they are the dearest of friends. They are the closest of friends. And if somebody asked me, what was the secret? For one thing, they're great spirits. So in some ways, I just got out of the way, and my ex-wife got out of the way and just let them grow. Yeah. But if you were to ask me, what was one of the things you did that you think really helped them stay friends through all of that and really love each other? And the answer is, I interrupted contention immediately every time I witnessed it. Yeah. And I redirected them. How could we have this conversation in a way where you don't hurt your brother's feelings, or you don't make your sister the bad guy, and so on. Yeah. Okay? And then it just redirected, and they kept learning. I can solve all these issues peacefully. Like, I can get through this without having to yell or get upset. And it calmed their hearts. And this is happening when they're 4, 6, 8 years old. Yeah, let them have that experience. Now, some people will say, well, they don't have that experience at my ex's house. That's okay. Right. Okay. Of the experience. Then let your home, opposition in all things, let your home be such a contrast. Yeah. I want you to create a home where when your kids come back from visiting their mom or dad, they literally take a breath and go, yep, I'm home. Okay. One of the best comebacks I ever had, and this is on the issue of parental alienation. There was this mom that I worked with, and the dad was just, embellishing stories and making her look bad. And the kids would come back, and he would literally tell them, she really doesn't care about you. She really doesn't have you as her priority in life. And the fact of the matter was, she was just so busy. She didn't have anything as a priority in her life. She was just trying to survive. But she had the best comeback. I loved it. And she just said, I had my child tell me this the other day, that dad says you don't care about me. And she just took the child by the shoulders, looked him in the face, and just said, how do you think I feel about you right now? And she was very emotional. And he looked at her and he said, I feel like you do care about me. And
Yeah.
she said, you're right. I do.
They know in their hearts the
Yeah.
truth.
So you bring them into the here and now. You don't say your dad's full of crap. You just say, look at me in the eyes right now.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's what we got to do. Take charge of our parenting in a really loving way and bring it back to the only things we can control with it, which is ourselves in the here and now. So anyway.
So good. John, I want to tell you something you were just talking about, that both of those are they kind of relate to just creating a safe place, right? For them to share, for them to be open about their feelings, not contentious, but then also you creating a safe place for them to be able to share. And
Right.
there's something, a therapist that I had my daughter going to therapy years ago, and this therapist suggested that we have an honesty chair. And so it was just a place when she wanted to open up and tell me something that was bothering her or concerning her, she sat in the honesty chair. And the rule is that she can tell me anything that's on her mind and she cannot get in trouble for it. There cannot be any repercussions for it. And I can't give feedback. I can't correct. It's just listen, like you said, you practice the listening and hearing and nodding and give them a hug. And then maybe later on you can bring it up, but not while they're in the honesty chair. That gives them the opportunity to build that trust in you.
Yep.
And anyway, I love that. And I don't know how
that matters. They need to know that I am allowed to think stinking thoughts. I am allowed to have bad motives. I am allowed to make mistakes, without being, I can be held accountable. That's different.
Yeah.
Than being punished or being shamed.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, the two things I can do wrong, I don't do anything about it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's no big deal. Or I make it a huge deal. Somewhere in there is, hey, that's not going to be good for you or make you, that's not going to lead to a great life for you. But at the same time, I don't see that as you or who you really are, and you can learn from this. And so I still believe in you. Can't we send both messages? That's the other thing I would do. Send both messages. The message that you can do better, but I love you
the way
as you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love you as you are.
They're not mutually exclusive. So
that might be the biggest challenge for me. And I'm just admitting that maybe a little controlling in that area, in that I feel I have to take my role as a parent very seriously. And so if there's the bad stinky behavior or whatever it might be, I do correct more than I know she wants me to. But I'm also open and I'll apologize and I'll say, I don't want to be micromanager. And, I do open up with her. I do let her know that that's not how I always want to be. But
and some things some things are worth intervening on, but
yeah,
I don't know. I tell parents, let them look, if they act stupid in public, I mean, what's the natural consequence of that?
Yes. Yeah.
Having one of their friends tell them, dude, you look totally stupid.
It's true.
It's like, oh, ouch.
Surprising, right?
And then let them come to me to be comforted by that. It's like, well, and then don't like say, oh, your friend's a bad person. No. Say, well, that was kind of a blunt way of saying it. How do you feel? Do you feel like that how you were behaving really represented who you want to be? Well, no, not really. And it's just like, so, okay, maybe there's some truth to what your friend's saying, and so just let's make a little adjustment. But at the same time, don't let that make you feel like you're not worthy or anything like that, Yeah. So I always try to have those balancing statements in every conversation.
That's good. So does anyone have I have other questions. They just keep coming. They keep flowing through my mind. If anyone has any others, we can throw it out there.
Let's take the quote real fast, the quote that you had on the announcement for this podcast.
Oh, yes.
What if you notice shame coming up in you when you're watching your kid act kind of foolishly in public, and you're trying to live your life through them, or your ego is caught up in how they look? Mm-hmm. What are some solutions for that? Because that is just not healthy, so you know. The best of parents have some of the most challenging kids, and the worst of parents have some of the most amazing kids. Ultimately we have to hold the kids responsible for how they choose to live their life, even though parents can have a huge impact on that. But it's almost like I come out of, when I used to see my kids do dumb stuff every once in a while, I'd almost act like I'm just some member of the ward or some person in the neighborhood, and a neighbor might comment, well, that's really interesting what your son's wearing to the, ward party today, and it's stuff. I go, I know, isn't that quirky? Yeah, that kid always surprises me, man. I never know what to expect.
Right.
Yeah. And so you just roll with it.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, I don't know what to expect. And then just say, I'm just glad that he doesn't, kill people and, and rob liquor stores.
Yes.
I'm just making that up as like,
well, and I'm glad he's here though. That's another point. I'm glad he's here with me. Like that's the thing, he could be home. I don't know. So do you want me to read it? The one from Glenn Latham, is that what you're talking about?
Well, no, I was just answering that idea that we don't live through our kids. You can read it if you want. But.
I don't know if this is the one you're talking about, but I like this too. And this might be an answer to some people too. That says, well-meaning parents who have tried their best should avoid the temptation of using their children's behavior as the measure of their success as parents. If children's behavior were the sole measure of good parenting, our heavenly parents would not qualify. Yep. It has nothing to do.
And both have children who succeed in many ways. Well, like it. Now, I do think,
but it's not
that there are things parents can do to literally ruin a child.
Yeah. True.
I mean, there's a level of depravity you can reach as a parent, but I don't imagine that anyone in this audience is going to do anything like that. But some of you may have exes that would. And so before I mentioned that I really don't get into the co-parenting, like trying to micromanage what the ex does as far as her parenting goes.
Yeah.
There is an exception. And what I would say is get very familiar with what is actually abuse and neglect.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, neglect, for example, is not, I forgot we had a doctor's appointment and I didn't take him and we had to reschedule. That's not neglect. That's a busy mom or dad forgetting to take them to the appointment. Okay. Yeah. They're not depriving them of medical care. They're forgetting the appointment. Okay. And so let people be human without having them arrested. And so not that they'd be arrested for that, but
right.
Basically don't throw the book at them every time, and the same thing, like, I mean, if someone chews out a kid and just says, hey, I don't like it when you do that, you need to cut that out. That's not emotional abuse per se, but definitely if they're name calling and yelling and screaming and shaming them and they're doing that repeatedly, yeah. Now we're entering into a realm of this could do damage. But again, provide the contrast in your home and teach your child that is not okay. And then let them know at some point I'll pull the trigger and try to stop it legally if it continues.
Yeah.
And now before I did that, I would probably talk to the co-parent and just say, hey, sounds like it's getting pretty heated over there. And I'm just letting you know if it gets to a place where I'm seeing symptoms of our child, not able to control their emotions or feeling overwhelmed or not wanting to come there, we're going to have to talk. And if we can't work it out, we're going to have to go back to court.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm not threatening you. I'm just letting you know that, we need to adjust, at some point. So, and if there's something I can help the child do, if they're triggering and doing stuff that they're not supposed to, by all means, I will be happy to help them learn whatever principle they need to. But, we got to be careful how we try to teach that. So if you can't have that conversation, then just document and go to court, I guess, when it becomes too much. So
Jen adds to that. Teaching them right from wrong is our job. They choose what they are going to do and learn the consequences. We just love them through their choices.
Yeah, to a degree.
Yeah. For love, condition, but the consequence.
Remember, we're doing balance. So you got to intervene some.
Yeah.
Now here, if you want to, I'll combine intervening with electronic addiction. How's that?
Okay, perfect.
Here's a combo answer. Listen, I grew up in the 70s and 80s. We did not have cell phone, mobile phones, like smartphones. We did not have computers. Maybe when I was a senior in high school, computers were like just kind of these, RAM, low RAM, just basic computers.
Mhm.
I'm so glad I didn't take a computer class in my senior year. That would have been a waste of a credit. So 10 years later, taking it in college, yeah, that would have been better. But I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I exercised more than my kids did. I was outside more. I had to negotiate relationships, especially with gangbangers that wanted to kick my trash. I had to learn skills that way. I was out in the streets, and that was good for me. It was good to have adversity. It was good to have exercise. It was good to be outside and active.
Mhm.
I don't know how we can be a parent. For one, comparing your life to your kid's life, please don't ever, if you've ever done that, don't ever do it again. Well, when I was your age, don't even finish that sentence. Just say, oh, shame on me. Our life is nothing like them.
Yes.
They have pornography, violence,
Gender confusion.
crime, gender confusion, all at their fingertips. Within 5 seconds, they can be reading everything vile that we were never exposed to because we just didn't have access back in the day. And so I really admire this generation, but you can't be a parent to this generation and not have, until they're 18 and the law says they have control, you have to have complete control of your electronics.
Yeah.
You need to let them know, I will see everything you do. I will see every text message. I will see every website you visit. Okay. I will see it all. I will be like Jesus and see everything, except that Jesus can read your mind too, but I can read everything you do on the internet. And I also have to have the ability to turn off the internet and turn off their phone remotely. Parents will come to me and they'll say, I just don't like the battle that I have when I have to take the phone. And I go, whoa, 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 whoa. Take the phone? No, just turn the phone into a paperweight.
Right.
You don't need to take anything.
Yeah.
Just shut it off. In fact, put it on a schedule.
Yeah.
Between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m., your phone is a paperweight. Put it on top of your papers.
Yeah.
And in the morning, go use it as a phone, that's just, you don't need it when you're sleeping.
Right.
And if you're not sleeping, then I don't want to pay for something you're using to not sleep. If you pay for it, if you pay the mortgage on the home, you control what happens in the home. If you pay for the phone, you control what happens on the phone. And that's not being authoritarian. That's just basic capitalism. That's basic democratic republic.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, you don't just get to go on anybody's property and make bonfires.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's their property. They get to tell you what you can do on their property, or whether you can even be on their property. Okay. And by the way, you can continue that until they're 40. You don't bring drugs into my house. You do not look at pornography in my house.
Yeah.
Okay. You do not steal money from my wallet in my house. I don't care if you're 5 or 45. Okay. Still my house, even though you're not a minor anymore. And so now what that does is people say, well, that'll create contention. You know what that does? It eliminates contention.
Yeah.
So if a child comes to me and they say, hey, you turned off my phone, what was that all about? I just saw some of those texts and some of the pictures you were sending to your friends. Yeah, that's kind of pushing the envelope. I don't know if I want you using a phone I'm paying for to be showing shots of you in your bikini to your little guy buddies. You know what I'm saying? I think I'm going to leave the phone off for another 24 hours. I just want you to think about that. Okay. And can we just set a little bit better boundaries? I just want you to set better boundaries so you're not being taken advantage of by people who don't care about you someday. That's really where I'm going with this. Anyway, what's for dinner? You know, I mean, yeah, we need to simplify. So
That's so good. I would love to learn. My goal right now in my life is to learn how to equip my daughter with the intrinsic motivation. I want her to be the motivation to come from inside of her.
ultimately, you can do absolutely nothing about that.
Oh,
But you can have some influence in that direction. So let's start with the first answer. How can I help my child? I'm going to reword this. How can I make it more likely that my child will develop an intrinsic motivation to do what is right?
manage whatever. Yeah. Yes.
Whether that's manage their,
Yeah.
make their bed, or, you know, not commit heinous crimes and everything in between.
Yeah.
First question you always ask yourself as a parent, how am I doing at that?
Oh, right. Yeah. Are they
How am I
watching
doing at that?
someone that knows what they're doing? Right.
Okay.
Good.
It reminds me of a commercial. It's actually an anti-drug commercial. And there's this dad and he opens this box and he finds a bunch of weed in there. And he's yelling at the kids saying, "Where did you get this stuff?" And the kid goes, "I got it from you. I got it from watching you." You know? And I remember watching that going, whoop, oh snap.
Yes.
Oh snap.
Yeah.
Because it's like that's it, people. So for example, if you want your child to tell you the truth, you got to handle it well, and you got to tell the truth too.
Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't mean you spill the beans on your love life and everything to your kid. No. They're not your therapist. You can maintain boundaries, but when you tell them something like, "Hey, you know, I don't ever do stuff like that," stop it.
Yeah. No comparing.
If you do so what can you say? "I did do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you know what? It
Right.
really distracted me from a really good life." And I often wonder, how much better could my life have been during that period, and even since, if I had made better choices? I don't want you to regret that like I did.
Yeah.
Do you see how that's better than lying?
Yes. That's so
You
good.
know, and another one would be, you know, like if they're throwing a tantrum, okay, and you're like saying, "Hey, come on, this is no big deal, snap out of it." But you often throw tantrums. Yeah, you know, I have a kid right now, and he just said, "I learned to be stubborn from my dad, and I learned to be angry from my mom."
Mm.
And he said, "I watched her, especially with like wait staff at a restaurant, or like a busboy at a hotel, or a valet parker, or whatever. She would go off on them and just be merciless." You know what I mean? And so now guess what he does to his mom? He goes off on her, and he is merciless. He leaves her in a puddle of tears. And just to say, "I don't know where he learned this stuff."
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you do. Come on.
And be open about it. Be okay about knowing you have these frailties and these weaknesses, and be
Yeah. And by the way, I don't expect parents to be perfect. Listen, I sure as heck wasn't perfect, but at least acknowledge it.
Yes.
At least own it.
Yep.
And you know what? Sometimes we really do need to apologize to our children.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do I want you to grovel to your children? No. Do I want you to apologize 50 times for the same mistake? No. If you've cleaned it up and you don't do that anymore, 1 or 2 apologies is sufficient. Okay. But what's the best apology? Changed behavior.
Yeah.
Right? We've all heard the quote. I know you have. Okay. It's like, "Mom, Dad, you apologize for treating me that way, but then you keep doing it all the time."
Yeah.
You know, and it hurts. It's almost like I want to believe you and trust you. I feel happy when you apologize. I feel like maybe we can have a better life. And then like 3 days later, you're yelling at me again.
Yeah.
Right. So, and a lot of times we'll say, "Well, the divorce was really stressful for me," or we'll come up with these excuses. But how do we feel when our kids come up with excuses? "Well, you know, Dad was being really mean to me, and that's why I went ahead and stole $50 from his wallet and spent it on dumb stuff." You know, it's like, whoa. You know, like, I get you feeling hurt, and I get you feeling like you don't have anywhere to go and talk about it. You need to relieve your stress. But yeah, we don't steal money from people to do that, you know? But then how do I handle it myself? Yeah, I got really upset with you, but you know what? I've been arguing with your dad and, blah, blah, blah. And no.
Yeah.
Me arguing with their other parent isn't an excuse for me taking it out on them.
Yeah.
So anyway, so take responsibility.
Here's my thoughts on the labeling. I don't like labeling. I like the therapists have this knowledge, but I also don't like it if I were to bring my child to a therapist and they did the 30 questions to diagnose her with whatever, borderline personality or autism or reactive attachment disorder, or basically, I guess just for me, my own interest and my level of understanding, it's best just to see the problems, but it is good to know why those problems are there. Anyway, I do want
to invite you to find balance on that.
Autism.
We almost need that to kind of conceptualize what someone's going through to understand it.
Reason why, yeah.
And sometimes, that comes with what you could call a label. We can hold those labels loosely, although some are hard to hold loosely. Some are easier to hold loosely than others. For example, schizophrenia, you don't hold loosely. That's just so definitive and so damaging and so clear that it's going to affect their life, until they have a new body. For the rest of their life, whereas something like depression or anxiety or something like that can be up and down, fleeting, that can be maybe overcome easier, but yeah, I use them as long as they're useful.
That's how do we know? That's the thing. I don't know.
But for example, I'm ADHD, but I got a PhD, and
right.
And so did there come a point, where I'm really no more ADHD than the next guy, meaning I just learned some tricks to overcome it. And there's a genius that comes with it too. And I learned to tap into that. So at what point do we stop labeling me? That,
It's helpful to know though. That's the thing. I agree with that. It is helpful.
Yeah. What I want kids and everybody who gets diagnosed to do though, is get to a level of resilience where you don't mind being labeled or not labeled. Like it really makes no difference to you. And then live your life like the label doesn't apply.
Yes.
And at some point, like even with addicts, once an addict, always an addict. I never believed in that. I really do. I actually have seen addicts with, 5, 10, 20 years of sobriety. And I say to myself, dude, I might be more likely to take a drink than you, I mean, I might be more tempted to use than you. And I've never used anything, and so, I do believe we have to let them go at some point, but they do serve a purpose. They help conceptualize what someone, and they can actually lead to empathy and compassion, but they can also lead to giving up on people too. So
that where we say that's just how they are. That's just the way
they're a tool. They're a tool, like a hammer. I mean, obviously, if you're beating your head with a hammer, you're not using it for what it was intended.
Yes.
So, but that's not the hammer's fault. So
this is true. Right. You just want us to listen, be honest, give them a safe place to share. Those are the kind of things.
Maintain your balance.
Maintain balance.
Manage your own triggers.
Yeah.
Don't leave it up to them to do that. Don't blame them because you lost your temper, even if they're just flying off the handle. Just, you know what I love to do as a parent is almost just stand back and watch the crap storm.
Yeah.
And just like, oh, that's a new one. I've never seen you do that.
Yeah.
Woo! You must be really angry now.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, I've even had kids at the school go, "You're laughing at me," and it's just like, I'm not laughing. I'm just smiling a little bit, just because the thing I think to myself is that school were a reality show, it would be the most popular reality show in the history of television.
Yes.
But can you imagine the liability issues with having a bunch of teenagers on TV like that? But yeah, the drama is incredible. And so sometimes you just sit back and go, wow, I am in the audience for the greatest show on earth.
Yes, that's right.
In fact, I would say one of the most special experiences ever, and this is ironic, but there's something about autism spectrum when it meets puberty.
Mm.
And you would think testosterone with autism spectrum would be the worst, but estrogen is a very special kind of bizarre. I have never seen the meltdowns of a 14-year-old girl who is autism spectrum. I've never seen the screaming, the fighting, just the absolute bedlam, emotional bedlam of a human being like I have in an autism spectrum girl who is just getting used to having estrogen coursing through her veins. It's something to behold, I will tell you. And I'm from a really rough neighborhood, and I've seen some girl fights in mental hospitals with teenagers where it rattles me, you know.
Oh, yes.
I'm glad she wasn't mad at me.
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell you that, because I don't want to lose half my head of hair like that other girl did, you know. So
okay, so are you open to opening up the floor?
absolutely.
Let's do it. And then so you guys can open up your cameras. Okay, so Jessica said, I had a new thing happen after COVID where my child would not go to school and I could not physically make her go. As I was studying and praying, I learned that it worked best to love her through the funk she was in, and we played her favorite music in the morning, and I would give her good words and hugs, and we worked through the anxieties until she was better. That every child is different, but I love that. Sometimes you just have to go with it, right? Okay, and then
So and here's where the balance comes again. Do I want to make staying home from school a party?
right.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Please don't do that.
No,
You know.
yeah.
But do I want to make it a shaming experience or like a punishing experience, or I'm going to make your life as boring as possible?
Yes.
No, we don't want to do that either, you know. And so here's what I would do. I would do what she would be doing in school as much as possible. Let's learn together. Let's study together. Yeah, but I want to go play. It's like, we'll do a little play, just like you have a little recess.
Yeah.
But, you know, and so I don't want to make it unpleasant, but I don't want to make it vacation.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now here's the other thing, though, about what Jessica did. What if the issue about not going to school is she's been traumatized or hurt or that kind of thing? So now it's not just do what you would do if she were at school, fold in another one, do something that's therapeutic.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Unless
holding and cuddling your child, you know, going outside and taking a walk, you know, doing things together, you know, watching a funny video together. You don't have to take up the whole day with that, but, you know, what are some things that could really sort of lift their spirits and let them feel competent, you know, let them feel like they matter, you know, stuff like that. I think that's fine, because that's not just fun for the fun of it. That's fun with purpose, or that's, you know, learning with purpose, or, you know,
for nurturing, right?
Yeah.
This is
Definitely don't let them just sit there playing games on their phone all day.
Yeah. So I have learned this, John. This is about my daughter, so I don't know if it applies to everyone. Tell me if this applies to some of you. I have learned that the times when she is the most difficult, it is always when she needs the most love. It's when it's the hardest for me to love, is when she's somehow crying for it the most. So when she does these little notes that says, you should just get rid of me and I'm not the right daughter for you or whatever, I just plaster another note on there that says, you're the best thing that ever happened to me, you know, or whatever, to just, you know, to combat it.
I would rather than write that note.
Oh, yeah.
I would rather you show her with time.
Time. Oh, quality time. Okay.
So I'm not telling you not to write the note. What I would say is, so again, always ask yourself the question first. Why would my daughter be sending me these notes like she doesn't matter in my life? Now, you may be doing everything you can to make her matter. So then that's something inside of her that needs to change.
Yeah.
But what if you say to yourself, I really have not spent much time with her for the last couple of weeks, like other than maybe 30 or 40 minutes here or there. I really have not spent a lot of time with her. So just own your own stuff.
Yeah.
And just say, you know what, honey, I noticed this happens when I really have sort of neglected our relationship.
Focus
I'm going
on
to be
the
honest
work.
with you.
Yeah.
And so listen, I am in the middle of a deadline right now that's due tomorrow. Okay, let's say tomorrow's Friday. But you know what? This weekend, I really don't have any firm plans. Why don't you and I take all of Saturday afternoon and evening and just go have a girls' day out, and just go have some fun together and go do some cool stuff. We'll do a little shopping. We'll go watch a movie, and we'll do each other's nails.
Yeah.
Like let's just
Let's
make it like an afternoon evening experience. And
Yeah.
that will probably get her through that next 24 hours until we get to Saturday. And then, yeah, go honor your word, take care of that relationship. So notice her being down on herself isn't because it's not even because she feels down on herself. It's not even because she feels down on you. It's because she misses you, maybe.
Oh, okay. Like reaching out for an answer.
Yeah. And so, well, that's not a bad need to have. I mean, that's a legitimate need.
Yeah.
And I wish I could find the quote, because I think it was Elder Worthland in General Conference, and he said that sin is when we seek to satisfy a legitimate need with an illegitimate action.
Yeah.
So if I have a sex
Yeah.
addiction, what am I really longing for? Connection.
Connection.
If I have a drinking problem, what am I longing for? Peace. If I have a meth addiction, what am I longing for? Courage and confidence. Like you point me to the addiction, I'll point you to what's missing.
That's awesome. Okay.
And then there are healthy ways to meet that.
Yeah.
But just trying to, the quick apology, the quick note that you matter. At some point, they're not going to believe it. They're just not going to believe it unless you back it up with your life, the way you live your life. Let your life speak for you, not your mouth.
That's so good. Or your hand writing.
Or your hand, or your thumbs on the text. I just don't know.
Well, here's the thing. So your first love was redheaded. Then you had 2 ex-spouses that were brunette. So I'm thinking the third time is the charm when you go for the blonde. So that's where you've missed so far.
I mean, I've been, let's just say, close to some blondes in my life.
Blondes have
so I won't say that I've never had a relationship with a blonde that wasn't close, shall we say.
Well, nowadays, all you have to do is like, look, honey, just so we can make sure that this thing lasts and we're going to be okay, just dye your hair blonde for the wedding, then we'll be good. We're set.
I really don't care about,
yeah, that's the right answer, John. I'm thinking that you're saying the right answer.
But for many years, the brown hair and brown-eyed girls, that probably was my greatest weakness.
I think as we get older, you kind of just sort of like, you like it all. But when you're younger, it seems like the younger guys tend to have more of a preference, like, high school, 20s, maybe thereabouts. Yeah.
Someday you might say,
I don't know.
Like great.
I really do like women my own age, but or maybe slightly younger, but not like decades younger. Let's put it that way. But
yeah.
Okay, Celeste, you don't have to put your camera on because you took off your makeup. You said.
No, we should make her put her camera on.
Put it on.
Yeah.
You guys turn it on. Come on.
I noticed that it's recording now, so
okay.
Even more reason to put it on. I mean, everyone who wants Celeste to turn her camera on, raise your hand.
Oh, Celeste.
There you go.
Okay, if I give you nightmares, then you can't.
Oh my gosh! If you take off yours, I'll take it out. If you show us your
okay, here I am. No makeup.
There's no difference.
No, there's a difference.
Not really, not much.
Yeah. Anyway, now I'm like red though because I'm embarrassed. But yes.
You have a question for John that could really embarrass him?
I don't know. Celeste might be a little nervous with her questions. But I don't know.
You were gonna go polar plunge with somebody. What give me an idea what that might be. Just give me like a, how would that look? What would that look like?
Hey, anyone willing to polar plunge?
I've got extended question. And would you totally just skip out on the second year of doing a polar plunge to become a crab? That's all. Okay, now go ahead. Just curious. Curious how this all.
Yeah, I polar plunged at the Boise Bash last year, and I'm skipping Boise Bash this spring. So I will not be there for any polar plunges. But
Doesn't
because
that
I
leave
will be a crab.
Yeah, that'll
So.
leave your polar plunge partner like without a polar plunge partner.
I know. I'm so sorry. It's kind of like being dance partners on Dancing with the Stars or something like that. It's just,
That's right.
you're gonna have to do this season without me, Celeste. So
I'm gonna have to go
Aw.
find a new polar plunge partner. So
right.
everybody's going to Boise Bash and a new partner.
Get Everett to go and polar plunge.
Everett doesn't go.
Oh,
Find someone else.
I'd do a polar plunge.
Hey,
I don't care.
I
Corey,
would think that I
Do
would.
you want to hear one of my weird gifts? Speaking of water and polar plunges, I think I've won just about every belly flop contest I've ever.
We are problems that want to be solved. We are children that need to be loved. What about